Hello everyone, this is Joe Meloche, Superintendent of Cherry Hill Public Schools. Today is Thursday, October the 25th, and thank you for joining me and my special guest, Mrs. Lynn Shugars, for our online lunch. Mrs. Shugars is with me today. For those of you that have not had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Shugars, she is one of our assistant superintendents. She is the business administrator for the district, and she is the board secretary. And I've asked Mrs. Shugars to join me so that we can talk about the upcoming bond referendum, which will take place on Tuesday. The vote will take place on Tuesday, December the 11th. Bond 2018, Building a Solid Future. So Lynn, first of all, thank you for spending some time with me today. I do have some snacks set out for lunch, which you are certainly welcome to help yourself to while we are here. I typically don't eat during the online lunch. Hopefully while people are at home or in the office, they're having a little snack while they're joining us. So first, can you just tell folks a little bit about what is it that you do? What's your role in the district? And let's get into kind of the meat of what's this bond referendum that we're working on.
Okay. So typically when I describe what I do for the district is I tell people that I handle all of the non-educational aspects of the district. So that covers anything from facilities, right? We're talking about bond referendum today, to budgeting and purchasing and payroll. All of those kinds of things that are support operations to keep the business of the school district running.
Excellent. It's a lot, right?
It is.
It's a lot. We are a large organization. I like to tell people all the time. We have almost 1,700 employees in the district,
yes.
Right? 1.7 million square feet of schools, more than 350 acres of land. So a large organization, and that all fits under your umbrella. Yeah. Folks, if you are watching us live and you are watching us on the YouTube channel, feel free to type in questions if you have questions you want to submit. If you're not watching on the YouTube channel, if you're watching the direct link through the website, you can always email our public information if you have a question that you would like to have answered. As always, Mrs. Wilson, our public information officer, is here in the room with us, and Mr. Bart, our director of operations, is here as our camera person as well. So Lynn, let's start talking a little bit about the referendum. So first, why a referendum? What's that mean?
So a referendum is a vote that's put out to the public that would allow the district to issue bonds. We have not done a bond referendum in this district for quite some time. It's really the only mechanism to raise substantial capital in order to do major projects.
Sure.
Over the years, we've been able to do smaller projects through capital reserve accounts, but we're really at the point now when we're talking about some of the things that we're talking about with the referendum in terms of HVAC replacements and roofing and security vestibules and security measures. We really need large capital dollars to address those kinds of projects, particularly over 19 schools.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
And why now?
Well, because the district hasn't done a bond referendum in a long time, and in February of 2019 we will make our last debt payment, bond principal and interest payment on the last bond referendum. So now's a good time from a financial standpoint to take on additional debt.
Excellent. So as we talk about this referendum, so you've been here, this is your 28th month or so since you started. You joined us in July of 2016.
Yes.
So while you've been talking about this and we've been talking about this, it seems to be a big focus since you were able to join us at that time. What's been the background about what's going on in terms of the bond work and what we want to include in the bond?
So literally, you're right. From the moment I've walked in the door, I've been talking about this, and I know those discussions started even before I got here. So, it's a process, right? When you're talking about addressing the needs of all these schools, it started with lots of conversations with our architect. Our architect has been involved with the district for a long time, sort of had a running list of issues that he knew we needed to address. When our roof warranty's up, how much HVAC work did we start, and how do we need to continue those things?
Right.
It was also visits to the schools. Both the architect, myself, director of facilities, director of support operations, spent a lot of times in the buildings. We had conversations with principals to find out how they're using their buildings. Are there any new programs that might be coming in that we need to think about through this process? And then lots of work with the board to take all of that information and determine the needs, prioritize the needs, and kind of try to boil it down into something that they would understand and could digest, because again, it's such a big project.
Sure.
So we broke things down into 5 categories. We talked about instructional spaces.
Yes.
We talked about security.
Yes.
We talked about community spaces. We also talked about hard surfaces, which is a lot of our paving that needs to be done. As you and I joke, sometimes we could do a whole referendum just on paving and
Just on
curbing and
paving,
sidewalks.
yes.
And then the other thing was infrastructure, building integrity. So really, as we started to break this down, security was a big factor.
Yes.
That's in question one.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we are providing some of those security measures. We've started some of that work. We want to be able to continue that work.
Right.
Building envelope. So we have a lot of wall work that needs to be done. We have
Right.
a lot of roofing that needs to be done. HVAC work. We have started with replacing boilers in the buildings, but we haven't done anything out from that, boiler replacement in the boiler room.
Sure.
So those were really some of the highlights and some of the focuses as we tried to digest and organize the information and the project applications that we submitted.
Right. Wow. It's been a lot of discussion.
It has been.
In that first year in 2016, 2017, as we initiated the discussion, the board adopted the goal to really take a strategic look at who we are. Facilities are tired. Lynn, is it something that's uncommon for a school district to go out for referendum or to take this approach?
It is not at all. And in fact, I had just come off going through that process in my previous district.
Right.
We had gone through the whole process and had done very similar type projects in the district. There's really no way through a regular budget to address these large projects.
Right.
We're subject each year to a 2% tax levy cap.
Yes.
We can't raise whatever we'd like to raise through our regular budget,
Yes.
so we have limitations on that side. Really, sometimes I'll equate it to sort of a home equity loan or something like that.
Sure.
You need those additional funds to address those bigger projects. It's just not something that can normally come out of a normal budget.
Sure. So just like our homes, right? And I use the story all the time. I'll be in my house 24 years in January. We replaced the roof, we replaced the furnace, we replaced the AC, the concrete, the hot water heater. It's just an ongoing process of work that needs to be done within the facilities. And again, folks, if you are watching us live, Mr. Bart and Mrs. Wilson are here with us in the room. If you have questions, you can certainly submit them to public information. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can certainly put them right in the chat feature that's there on the side of the window. So then let's talk a little bit more in terms of specifics about the referendum questions, right? Because it's questions that we ask the community. We put it out there and ask them to respond, in terms of voting on whether or not we can borrow this money. So this referendum that'll go up on December the 11th, it's broken into 3 questions. So you can talk a little bit more about what do those questions look like, and why broken into the 3 questions.
Well, part of the reason we broke it into 3 questions was because we wanted to make sure that we could come up with a question 1 that was tax neutral.
Okay.
So literally question 1, because of the expiring debt, will
Yes.
have no effect on the tax levy. It's actually a slight reduction
Sure.
for the average assessed home. So we felt that question 1 should be tax neutral and that it should really focus first and foremost on some of the security issues.
Yes.
So in question 1, we have a lot of those security upgrades. The other thing that we wanted to include in question 1 was the HVAC for some of our all-purpose rooms in our elementary schools.
Yes.
They currently do not have HVAC.
Yes.
If you've been in there on a warm May afternoon during lunchtime, you certainly understand the need for that, to have that area be a place where kids can go and
Sure.
decompress and have not a hot lunch.
Right.
So, that was a focus in that, as well as, again, those building envelope type things, addressing some of the wall work that needs to be done.
Sure.
So that pretty much encompasses question 1. That's about $49 million
Right.
worth of work, and again, would be tax neutral.
Right.
Then question 2 is really kind of the meat and potatoes, I guess I would say.
Sure.
Expanding beyond the security, again, focusing on the building integrity, going back again to HVAC work, electrical work, some toilet room upgrades, and then some additional all-purpose rooms. We took a look at our elementary schools, and some of our elementary schools have some very small all-purpose rooms. So we took a look at Barton, Kingston, Knight, Mann, and Sharp, and felt that an additional area on those buildings would be very beneficial. We would convert the current all-purpose room into just a cafeteria
Right.
area. So that's a big bulk of question 2. In addition to that would be some music rooms over at Rosa.
Right.
We felt that area, particularly if you go into the cafeteria, you can see they have a lot of their equipment stored in the back of the cafeteria. they just need some more space over there. So we would actually convert the current cafeteria to music rooms and then add an additional cafeteria onto the back. So
with a stage.
With a stage,
right?
yes.
With a stage.
Yes, because currently they do not have a stage
Correct.
at Rosa.
Right.
So those are some of the upgrades that we would do there. Small group instruction rooms for some of our buildings would be included
Yes.
in that area. And then toilet room upgrades, and then ceiling and lighting replacements throughout the district.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like it would be a big project, but I feel that that's going to have a huge impact on the brightness of our buildings.
Absolutely.
Long overdue. So our lighting from the original buildings is just not sufficient.
Sure.
So a lot of that work will be done in question 2 as well.
That's great.
And so that question came. It's $113 million in that question.
Okay.
For the second question.
Nice.
The third question, I don't like to call them nice to haves because I don't think anything we're doing is a nice to have.
Right.
I would say there are things that we could survive, if they don't happen, but still, and felt that they would be very beneficial in terms of the educational program and some of the things that we would like to do. So in question 3, science labs and the gymnasium at Carusi Middle School is in question 3.
Yes.
Locker rooms in the middle schools and high schools, auditorium upgrades at High School East.
Yes.
That's an area that just has not been touched in a really long time.
Right.
We have some very old seating in there,
Right.
Some plaster that has been damaged over the years from mortar. So there's certainly some upgrades that could be done there.
Right.
Science labs at High School West, and then some facilities improvements at both East and West. And then all of the paving work is in question 3 as well.
Right.
So that's obviously a very important piece because we have a lot of paving in the district.
Right.
Just looking at the High School East parking lot alone is a huge project right
Sure.
there. So when you look at all 19 schools and the paving work that needs to be done, that's in question 3. And that question is just under $48 million.
Okay. So the 3 questions that go through, the first question is tax neutral, or actually it's actually a decrease in what the tax levy would be because of what we currently are paying on our outstanding debt, and then the other 2 questions that come in. And the questions have to pass sequentially, right? Question 1 has to pass in order for question 2 to be able to pass. Question 1 and 2 both have to pass in order for question 3 to be able to pass. They can all 3 pass together, or it can be question 1 and not 2 and 3, question 1 and 2 and not 3, or all 3, right?
Correct.
Okay, so a sequential order that goes through. One of the things that I do want to point out too is as you look on the website, so the district website is just the regular www.chclc.org, but here is the specific page for the bond referendum. You can type in the URL. You can also go to the district website, and just in about a third of the way when you scroll down the screen, on the left-hand side, there's a button that takes you to the link for the bond referendum. There's an incredible amount of information on the website. In fact, I had the folks down in the print shop blew this up for us. When you go on the specific bond page, on the left-hand side, these are the options for you to choose in order to find additional information. Again, an incredible amount of information on here. The first link, the bond referendum building improvements listed by school. When you open up that link, you can go through for each one of the schools, and it'll show a graphic image with an outline of the school to see the additional work, the new work, the renovations, the security work that's being done in each of the schools. You can see the bond referendum project presentations that were done. The question summary. So the question summary will actually go through and it shows question 1 lists all of the schools and then the projects to be included. Question 2, the same thing. Question 3, the same thing to go through. There's an FAQ, frequently asked questions. Questions continue to come in as questions come into us. In fact, questions that we'll talk about, I'm sure, during this online lunch, Mrs. Wilson will then convert and we'll put up on there. Security summary by Ronan Security Solutions. So Ronan Security is a security firm that we had come in and do an audit of the district. The security firm provided additional feedback about some of the work that we are doing, specifically about some of the work with the security vestibules, our policies and practices. And in fact, the Ronan brings up an example. So Lynn, you talked about the architects of you, so Beskin Associates. They're our architect of record, the engineers. And I remember when you and Mr. Middleton, who's the engineer that we contract with through there, doing one of the presentations, talked about almost 36 additional people on the outside that consulted and did work on putting these projects together. Environmental engineers, right? TTI is the environmental company that we use. Structural engineers, contractors, other architects, all of those people, these almost 3 dozen people outside of the district that we use to help build these questions. And why do we use folks like that to put the questions together?
Well, because, you know, this is obviously a huge project that we're doing. We're dealing with some older buildings. You never know what you're going to run into with older buildings. We know our buildings have asbestos.
Yes.
You know, all buildings of this age and even younger buildings have asbestos.
Sure.
So we know there will be asbestos removal as part of this project. We know that Cruci, for example, will be a very large asbestos removal project.
Right.
It just takes, you know, it takes a village
Sure.
to put these questions together. We wanted to make sure that when we submitted our applications that we had the correct information.
Yes.
We wanted to make sure that we did a thorough investigation of what needed to be done.
Right.
And our architect firm is wonderful, but when you're talking about HVAC, you're talking about
Right.
roofing, there's lots of experts that can come in and help you look at that work, evaluate
Sure.
that work, figure out what is the most cost-effective way to address it.
So it's taking all of that and putting it together.
Right.
Excellent. One of my favorite parts on here is the tax impact calculator. So on there, you can actually go in, folks, and put the assessed value of your home. When you type in the assessed value of your home, it's set up, the automatic default that's on there is to the average assessed home in Cherry Hill. It'll show you what the net impact of questions 1 and 2, and questions 1, 2, and 3 will be on your taxes. The net impact on the average assessed home in Cherry Hill, if all 3 questions pass, is $232, less than $20 a month for more than almost $211 million worth of work. Bond Referendum community meeting dates. These are meeting dates that are going on both here in district as well as in the community. Events that I'll be attending, Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Shugars, some of the other folks, board members that will be out. If you're involved in a community group, or if you want to have a coffee at the house to talk about what's going on in the referendum, let us know. Contact Mrs. Wilson in public information, contact me directly, or contact Mrs. Cohen. Then there's also voter information, where you can find the polling places. And the polls will be open on December 11th from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. All the regular polling places will be used, and they are all listed directly on there. You'll also be able to find on the website the specific wording of the questions, so you can see exactly what question 1, question 2, and question 3 say. And it's one of the reasons the Shugars, Lynn, that I have out here my little orange construction helmet, a little orange cone, because we're expecting these to be regular things that will be seen throughout the district. Expecting the referendum gets passed on December the 11th, we will see work that will begin in June probably, or in the summer of 2019. But one of the things we've talked about throughout as well is work will begin in 2019, 2020, 2021, and probably into 2022 at least, because of the size of the projects that we are doing.
Yes, and work will be going on during the course of the school year, because when you're talking about this amount of work, there is no way to complete it over the summer.
Correct.
The summer that is not as long as people think it is,
right.
And our buildings are used in the summer.
Correct.
So, there will be work done through the school year. We will do any kind of asbestos abatement that needs to be done during the summer months. Anything that could be hazardous will be done when the buildings are empty, but we anticipate that work will go on throughout the school year as well.
And for a number of years. It will
Yes.
not all be done in the summer of 2019. The projects are too large.
Correct.
And too vast. One of the other questions, Lynn, that has come in is about if the referendum is to be defeated on December 11th. What are our options after that? Just talk a little about the options, and I'll tell folks what I think we're going to do and where we are.
So if it were to be defeated, we could turn around and go back out again. We have
Right.
some other opportunities throughout the course of the school year to do that.
And the next one would be in January, but we probably would not be able to do it in January. So the next following time is March, right?
March, yeah. Most likely we would go out again in March.
Okay, and we will have that discussion. There will be a big discussion on December 18th at our board meeting, right? That's our board meeting for the month of December. There will be a big discussion about the referendum. If it passes, that'll be one discussion. If it does not pass, that'll be another discussion on December 18th.
Right.
But if it does fail on December 11th, we will put the same referendum, the same 3 questions, we'll go back up again in March. The work that's included in these projects, and folks, I am hopeful you will take the time to go through the website and become informed on what the information is that's included in here. This work is work that has to be done. Lynn talked about the 3rd question, and why those things are in there. It's work that we believe is incredibly important to the district. Could we continue to have the high quality of shows that the folks at High School East put on in the theater and the music? Yes, because we have incredibly talented children, incredibly dedicated staff. But it's time for us to do the work to bring the theater up to the level that we believe that it should be, to replace those seats, to do work on the plaster, to do work, in the technical side of the theater, or on the synthetic field that we put behind these. It's time for us to be able to put lights on there, to put bleachers in, so that it can be used for, for multiple sports and for, at nighttime. It's time for us to be able to do this work. Little less than, right around $211 million,
yes.
For the 3 questions. The average assessed home, $232
Yes.
A year to go through, less than $20 a month. So let's see if there is, somebody asked a question, Lynn, about plans for high school east and west. They said they didn't see them in the presentation. Folks, if you go on the website, again, where I pointed out on the specific bond page in here, the bond referendum building improvement listed by school. If you click on there, the high schools are listed, and you'll be able to see specifically what's included for high school east and for high school west. We released the wording. There was a question about, are we going to release the wording that's going to be on the ballot? Yes, that's up. It's under the voter information, which is it's the last link. It's on the referendum website right here. If you click on there, and then we answer the question. Somebody asked the question, if the bond is not passed, will it be rewritten before it's put out again for another vote? And the answer is no. If the bond does not pass in December, on December 11th, we will put it back out in March of 2019. Lynn, anything else you want to say, or anything else you want to leave the folks with before you depart?
Just please make sure you're an informed voter. You'll have the opportunity to vote that day on election day. You can also ask for a vote by mail ballot if you would like.
Correct.
So you have those opportunities as well. Certainly, we have the Q&A. We have a quick question mechanism on our website as well. So if there's something specific that you'd like to ask us, we can certainly take a look at those questions and get that information out there.
Excellent. Before you leave, can I interest you in, so my little lunch, typically, it's my regular general lunch. I have my yogurt, my almonds, and my chia seeds. I've gotten it over the last year. I like the chia seeds. Mrs. Cohen gave me a little shaker for my chia seeds, so very fancy. My fruit, because I like to have the fruit during the day. And I will tell you, over the course of the summer, I got back in the afternoon Cheerios.
Yeah.
Little Cheerios as a snack, heart healthy, right? So I recommend Cheerios for a little snack. It has a nice little crunch in the afternoon to keep me going. Well, Lynn, thanks for coming in. It's nice to see you. I appreciate it. And we'll have you come back in January or February, right? Talk about next steps.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Me
Very
too.
good. Thank you. So, folks, as Lynn takes off, it's always good to have a lot of information and have as much information as possible and authentic information. So I'm incredibly glad that Lynn was able to spend some time with us to talk about the specifics in the referendum with what has gone on. There are a couple of other highlights that I'd like to mention as we are almost to the end of October. A couple of things. First, the artwork that's behind me on the walls is for the talented children at Kingston Elementary School. I was incredibly excited last week to welcome the children and their families here. We do a reception. We get to talk about the artwork, what inspired them, how did they do it, what went on, all those different pieces about how they produced the work that's there. Also, over my right shoulder to your left, you can see a banner. And one of these banners is hanging in every one of the schools in our district. That's our National District of Character banner. Again, we are incredibly proud as a community for the work of the staff and of the children and the community members and the parents and the PTAs that have been involved in this character journey with us. So look to see those banners as they appear throughout the district. We are recognizing and celebrating Red Ribbon Week in our schools this week. There have been a lot of activities going on in each of the different schools. Many of the schools have shared information and images through social media. Always a good time to have a discussion at home about Red Ribbon Week and what does it mean? What does it mean to you as a parent and as a family member? What does it mean to your children? Talk to them. Ask them. What have they talked about in school? Next week is Halloween. The end of October is Halloween. There'll be grade level appropriate activities taking place in the schools. Look for information to come out from the schools. If you are trick-or-treating, if you're involved in that in the community, please make sure you are careful and that you are safe and you follow the guidelines that the township and the Cherry Hill Police Department put out regarding trick-or-treating. I want to encourage everyone, if you get an opportunity tomorrow night or Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, to head to High School West to see the fall production of Newsies, a fun musical production. I encourage you to get out. You can get information again on the Cherry Hill West website. It's also on the district website. Last Friday, the opportunity to see Read Deranged, A Night of Poe, over at High School East. I'm going to tell you the work that goes on in our theater programs, what the children produce, what the adults produce, what the kids on the stage is absolutely incredible. We are into the fall preview and fall concert seasons are taking place. An exciting thing for us here at the administration building is on Monday afternoons, Mr. Kane rehearses with the Alt Cherry Hill Elementary Choir. The kids are here. It brings an energy and a voice throughout the school, which is incredibly exciting. Mrs. Wilson, any other questions coming through? No?
Long questions.
Okay, so Mrs. Wilson's saying that there are some lengthy questions are coming through. There might be a little too much in an oral response, but we'll prepare a written response that'll go up. If they're specifically about the bond or about the referendum, they'll be on the bond section of the website. If they're about other things going on in the district, we will certainly put them up in our regular Q&A section on the district website. Let me tell you a little bit about my current reading list. Just slide this over. So I have some books that I'd like to share with you and certainly to recommend. First, one that was just a quick read recently for me and a favorite that I came back to, The Red Pony, John Steinbeck. We have Grapes of Wrath is typically a summer read at the high school level for our kids in the English program. I do enjoy John Steinbeck. If you have not read The Red Pony, again, it's a short book, it's a quick read, a great message and a great story. My next novel that I just picked back up that I'm excited to get into is Oil, Upton Sinclair. Upton Sinclair is one of my favorite authors. I think back in the spring I'd shared, I'd gone back and reread The Jungle, and this is Oil, which I will be getting back into. Then some books that have been shared with me. This has been a read at one of our schools, Save Me a Seat, Sarah Weeks. This is a great story, It's an elementary level, Save Me a Seat. Great message for our children and for us as a community. A recent one that I just picked up last week, I attended a session with Annie McKee, who is the author of this book. It's How to Be Happy at Work, The Power of Purpose, Hope, and Friendships. So I'm excited to read Annie's work. I have spent time with her in the past. She's a researcher and a professor and an author out of the University of Pennsylvania. I'm going to tell you that I'm awfully happy at work on a pretty regular basis, but I'm always looking to see how we can improve what we're doing. Another book from one of our schools that staff are reading, Project-Based Teaching. Again, direct interaction with our children. What goes on with our teachers? How are they planning? How are they engaging our kids? Classrooms should look differently than what we as adults experienced as children. And I'm here to tell you that our teachers are incredibly dedicated with what they do, what they produce, and what they put together. And then finally, a book that Mr. Goldthorpe, who's one of our curriculum supervisors, gave to me a couple of weeks ago, Ambitious Science Teaching. We have been revolutionizing the way that science is being taught to our children from kindergarten through seniors in high school, the incorporation of the next generation science standards, and really taking a hard look at how do we teach science, how do we engage our children in science, and how do we make sure that it is an active and a successful learning environment. So those are my current reads. If you have something that you're reading or that you'd like to suggest, let me know. Send me an email. And folks, as you look at the referendum and you talk about the referendum, and I hope that you are talking about it, if you have questions, ask us. If you want to know what's going on in the district, contact us. Follow along on the district app. You can download it from the Apple Store or from, what's the other one? From Google Play. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. From Google Play. It's a free app. You can select which schools you'd like to follow along or where you'd like to get information. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Follow the district website. There's an incredible amount of information on our district website. Talk about the referendum. If you're involved in a community group and you'd like us to come out and talk to you and answer questions about the referendum, let us know. All right. Look forward to seeing you folks in schools. Please remember, choose to be nice, and beyond being nice, be kind. Think about your words. Think about how you interact with folks. Think about the message that you are sending through your actions and your words, what representation we put out there for our children. Our children are always watching, and they're always listening. Look forward to seeing you.